Okay, this tutorial is going to cover the crop tool, which is going to help you when you don't quite get the shot exactly the way that you wanted it when you took it. So I've included for you two sample files, this picture of a butterfly and a flower, and this picture of the Pantheon in Rome, Italy. Let's start with the butterfly because that's going to cover the basics for us. So opening up this picture, let's say that now I have two stories going on, the butterfly and the flower, but I want to crop my photo down so it's just one story. Well, the crop tool in Photoshop is the letter C, and mine has been changed, but is this kind of little looking symbol there. You can see it's like it's reframing an image. So that's the crop tool. Now the basics of how the crop tool works is when you click and turn the crop tool on, you'll see these little handles show up at the top and the corners and left and right. Now at its very most basic, you simply drag those handles and it will crop the image down. So if I wanted to get just the butterfly, I could kind of click and drag that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if any time that I'm holding on those, if I hold the shift key, it will actually drag left and right at the same time. So here I'm holding down shift and it's dragging kind of in perspective there, which can be nice if you don't want your photo turning into a panorama or what have you. Kind of leaves that ratio set up. So here I can crop down the butterfly. Now you'll notice as you're cropping, the area that kind of gets darker is the area that's going to be lost. The area that's light is your image. Now, before we actually crop here, let's notice something's going on. When I have that crop going on, you might notice that there's these lines in it, and these are the rule of thirds lines. So now you're like, oh yes, I remember that. So when I'm cropping with the rule of thirds, the kind of general guideline is that you don't want your image to be centered because that can end up boring. Rather, you want them to fall on the rule of thirds. So I might put like the head of the butterfly there on that line and make mine a little bigger. So there's these little guidelines that show up there for you, which can be really, really nice so that you're kind of cropping to the rules of photography if that's your thing. You can actually change the settings up here at the top for what you're really going with. Now we cover rule of thirds in this class, but future classes you might cover things like the golden ratio and the golden spiral. All of these are just terms of how to correctly frame something. But at its very most basic, the crop tool will let you kind of crop down an image. Now before we move on, Photoshop has added a really cool feature, which it used to be when you cropped an image, that was it. You were out of luck. And if you happen to save a cropped image over the top of your original file, you were totally screwed. Well, now Photoshop's included this little button at the top, which is called Delete Cropped Pixels. Now if this was to be turned on, and I was to take this crop that I'm doing, it'd be permanent. I would lose the flower forever. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn that off, because now what happens is I can crop this image by pushing the Enter key. And now you're like, well, okay, now he's got a picture of a butterfly. But if I decide later, oh shoot, I really like that flower instead, I take that same crop tool, and you can see the grayed area comes back in. So it's a really big deal to be able to do that because you couldn't always do it. So now I can say, okay, no, I want the flower instead, and I can crop down here, and now the picture is just of a flower. Okay. Something else to kind of know is if perchance I want to move the image around inside of here, I can actually take the Move tool, and because the image did not delete the cropped pixels, it's all still there. So I can even drag down and bring the butterfly back that way as well. So it's kind of a neat feature. Almost all of the time I leave the drop crop or delete crop pixels turned off. The only time I might turn it on is if I'm trying to get an image down to a certain size, something that's maybe a little bit smaller so I can email it or what have you. So that's the basics of the crop image option there. So that's what we'll be doing to the butterfly. You will simply be taking the image and you'll crop it down so that we can see just the butterfly. That's part one of your assignment. Now I'll give you this other little tidbit here because you're going to need it to complete this assignment, is you're going to do a save as. Anytime I'm really editing a photo, I always do a save as, which is Command Shift and S, and then I might add just a little thing to the end of the name here, like a CR, so I know that that image is cropped. So let's say that that's part 1 of the crop tool, just making a basic crop. Let's look at part 2 here, which is a really cool tool, and we'll use the straighten photo here. So I'll double click that. And what's neat about the crop tool, still see I'm there, you can see this button up here at the top, which is a straighten tool. Now what this straighten tool does is it allows me to draw a line on my image that I think should be straight. So you can see this picture here was kind of taken at a bad angle. And I'm wishing, oh man, I wish that this was more straight so I could read those words easier. So what I would do is click that straighten tool, and then I simply drag a line. I click and hold and drag a line on one of these lines of the building here, and Photoshop will straighten the image for me. Now, not only does Photoshop straighten it based off of that line I drew, but it also recrops it so that the image is complete. So I don't have any of this extra checkerboard area. So when I push enter here, I now have a straight image. Now you should be thinking to yourself, well, we just covered how it's not deleted because I've lost my H here. So I know I can pick that up and I can come back in and I can get all my words there. But now I know that that line is straight. Now it ends up not looking perfectly straight, so it's something you can do over and over and over again here if you like. And now I have myself what looks like a pretty straight line. So again, I would do a save as, Command Shift S, and I would say straighten, this is cropped, and straightened, CRNST. You can come up with however you want to name it. Ultimately, that's what your assignment is to do, is to crop the photo to it's just a butterfly, and straighten the image so that the words are straight. How are you going to turn it in? Well, that's easy. After you have exactly what you see here, a picture of a butterfly cropped, the butterfly, the straightened, the crooked image, and the straightened image, you're just going to take a screenshot of those, which is Command Shift 4, and go ahead and take a screenshot, like so, and you're all done. Turn that screenshot into Canvas, and you're finished with this assignment.